So I'm delighted to welcome on my 10th episode of Meet the Author, James Burke. James is with us this morning, so good morning to you, James.
Morning, Paul. Good to be here, brother.
So I saw James's book, Marketing That Works, and basically I'm one of these people that I've got literally got three, four, 500 business books. I've got two or three full bookshelves. I devour them, I learn from them, and I think for me, one of the reasons why books are important and by sharing interviews with people like James are important for me is because my why is about giving back. For me, I want to give back to the next generation. The people are going through some of the problems, some of the situations, some of the challenges that I had in my career, and how we can use authors, experts like James to help us do that. But before you and I speak, James, I'd like to give a shout out to my youngest granddaughter, Amelie, who's 13, who has actually watched every one of my Meet the Author interviews. And when we meet up, she says to me, Gramps, I love that bit. And actually, as an ardent fan of mine, she talks to her teachers about my podcast, about my interviews. And I think if we could inspire the next generation to learn from us, to take an interest in what we're doing in business, because business is all around us, I think to me that's a wonderful thing for us to do. So, Amelie, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. And no doubt I'll have some feedback from you on what I could improve and what I could do better. And I love you for that. And long may you continue to enjoy these recordings. So, after that, James, so I'd love you to share your journey, James, because when I saw you on the Prime series, Business as Unusual, you shared some of your stories and you actually went back to places where you actually lived because you didn't have any accommodation. And when I saw that, I thought, my God, James has lived life in a relatively few number of years, and there's a lot of lessons that James can teach us. So, James, over to you. So, I'd love to hear more about your journey and for you to share that with the listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So my journey started about as far away from high-level marketing and high-ticket sales as you can possibly imagine. 16 years old, what you're referring to there, Paul. I was in an outdoor toilet, spending my first night sleeping rough, getting battered by the rain and freezing temperatures in July 5th in Manchester. And it was still freezing, it was still raining. And I'd been kicked out of the family home, hence having nowhere to stay. I've been sofa hopping with a few friends for a few months, and then one of our mates in the circle. Bearing in mind, I'm 16 at this point, so all my friends are 16 or 17. But one of the guys got his girlfriend pregnant, and they ended up with a house. And we come to this arrangement that I could stay with them until the baby was born. So the reason that I can remember the date so clearly is that that's the date that my friend's baby was born. Young Jack was born July 5th. So that night I had to leave his house, and I'd gone knocking on a few doors, a few of my friends, and it was just basically one rejection after the other, no room at the inn. So the rain had started coming down, and I made my way back to this outdoor toilet that I pointed out on the Amazon Prime documentary. And basically just went there to get a little bit of shelter and respite from the cold and the rain. But it just didn't stop, and I ended up spending my first night. I say sleeping there. I don't think I slept very much at all, to be honest. It was ridiculously uncomfortable. I was still cold. I was in wet clothes. And I spent the whole night just feeling lonely and wondering how the hell I'd got to this point. So that was kind of that's where my adult life started, really. I was young. I was, like I said, only 16. I was out of the school. I'd been kicked out of school. I should have still been at school at that age, or just left. I should have literally just left, just done my exams and left. I'd been kicked out of school. I'd been kicked out of the family home. I'd grown up on this really rough estate where people were getting shot or stabbed, and a few lads went to jail for murder that were in my class at school. And then I was kind of thrust into, right, you've got to go out there and survive now. You've got to go out there and learn how to fend for yourself, and that was me at 16.
And that was tough, wasn't it, James?
Yeah, it was. It was really tough, yeah. It was, do you know what the toughest part was, Paul? Like, I just referenced it there. It was that feeling of loneliness and thinking, am I that bad that literally nobody will let me sleep on their couch? So I've been boxing for a long time. My boxing career was going well, and I'd spent a few nights sleeping in the boxing club when I can get my hand on the keys from our coach. And things were going really well there. So I'd sleep on I've literally slept on the canvas of the boxing ring. Like I said, slept in outdoor toilets, abandoned warehouses, on the local park. And that was the toughest part of all, was that thought process of, am I that bad that just nobody will let me stay on their couch in their spare room or whatever? And of course, people did, right? That a part of that journey. I was 3 years I spent homeless, and for probably 50% of that journey, you know, I was sofa hopping, I was on people's couches, but then there were the nights where there wasn't, and yeah, it's pretty ruthless out there. The guys that are sleeping out there every night, it is tough.
So how did you get started in business then, James?
So I retired from boxing. I turned pro at 19. I retired from boxing at 23. So that was pretty tough as well. I was, I had my job. I got this big opportunity to fight on a Frank Warren show, live on Sky Sports. This was going to be like my breakout party, right? And that fight just went horrifically. Everything went wrong. I ended up breaking my jaw in the second round. And then the next round was worse, and the next round was worse. After the fight, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis. So I broke my jaw again a few months later, and then was diagnosed with osteoporosis, which is brittle bones, not ideal for a boxer. So the British Board of Boxing control them. There was the medicals in boxing, in professional boxing, are really strict. You're tested every year. You're having brain scans, you're having even like STI tests. They're really, really strict. So there's no way through those with osteoporosis, and I had to retire. So then I kind of had this period of about 6 months where I was really depressed. I was overweight. Then a friend of mine that I'd grown up boxing with killed himself. Just literally 2 weeks after seeing him and him putting his arm around me, because I'd been so depressed after losing my boxing career and all these years of hardships out on the streets. And then my nan passed away, who was like a maternal figure. And I was just crippled with depression. I put on a ton of weight after stopping fighting. And I was suicidal, basically. I didn't want to be here anymore. So that was me at 23, depressed, overweight, and suicidal. And then a friend of mine sent me a video of a motivational speaker called Eric Thomas. And in this video, Eric Thomas says, you owe you an explanation, you're the reason, basically he puts it all the responsibility on you. But he'd hooked me with this video. So now we're getting into marketing. He'd hooked me with this video. He'd been telling me to watch this guy for about 6 months, and I'd have been ignoring him. I think everybody's guilty of that at some point, aren't they? There's something they know they should be doing, and they're not doing it. And he'd been saying, watch this guy, watch this guy. And I just kept putting it off. I was like, I will. And then the day that I watched that video where Eric Thomas starts saying, hey, you owe you an explanation, he'd put on the message, you've got to watch this guy, honestly, he was homeless just like you. So there's so many great marketing lessons in there I'm sure we'll get into, but it just hit me like a brick, and I watched it, and then I went down a rabbit hole, and I started watching more and more. And then he brings out this other speaker called Inky Johnson, who had a sports career that was cut short. So this relatability was huge. So I started watching Inky Johnson, and basically I'd slipped into personal development without even knowing it. And then I heard the phrase, similar to what you've just referenced there, Paul, with your library behind you, like the average CEO reads 50 books a year. And I thought, oh wow, okay. I hadn't read most of the way through school, never mind at this point, since leaving school up to being 23, I hadn't read a single book. So I started reading. And a lot of the books that I was reading, you like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins, and they were talking about setting goals and getting clear on what you wanted. And that's what had been missing for me, because I'd always wanted to be world champ. I just wanted to box. And now that I couldn't do that anymore, I needed a new vision, right? I needed a new blueprint. And I did the work, I did the study, I did the goal setting exercise, probably spent about 6 months getting clear on what I want, and then I decided that I wanted to be an estate agent. So I wrote this was before Indeed and One Click Apply. I wrote all the CVs and the covering letters and posted them out to all the estate agents, and got my first job in sales back when I was 23. That was my introduction to proper work.
So I bet there were some lessons from working with estate agents or working in estate agency, weren't there?
In sales, lots of them. In marketing, it was more how to not market. So estate agents do almost everything wrong. You'll see this next time you're driving past the sign. You'll see this, and the estate agents put up these boards, and they're not the boards that go outside the house. They're advertising their own product, and it says "landlords wanted." There isn't a less effective thing that you could say. If you had 2 words and you had to choose the worst 2 words that you could possibly choose to try and attract new clients, they'd be right up there. Landlords wanted. It's like, whose problem is that solving? That's solving the estate agent's problem. It's not solving anything for the landlords. The landlord might drive past it and go, oh, they want me. That's nice. But then they're going to drive on. It's not solving a problem for the landlord. So in terms of marketing, even though really estate agency, you've got to know what business you're really in. Estate agency really is the business of marketing. You're marketing the houses for the vendors or the landlords. And they're awful at it. Look at most estate agents' descriptions and it says, Mr. Estate Agent is proud to present. It says the first thing they say in the description is the estate agent's name. Mr. Estate Agent is proud to present this 3-bedroom semi-detached house or whatever.
So it's about them.
It's all about them. Yeah,
it's not about the customer.
And then pointing out the obvious. I know it's a 3-bedroom semi-detached house because Rightmove tells me in the little graphics that it shows anyway. So, and I can see clearly from the picture. The most important part of any advert is where the eyes go first. And the first part of that description is the most important part of the description, because if no one does a good job with it, no one's going to watch on, or read on, or pay any attention. So the same is true on social media. The most important part of the video is the first couple of seconds, because if you don't grab people with those first few seconds, no one's watching on. So why would you put Mr. Estate Agent is proud to present a 3-bedroom semi? Like, that's not grabbing anybody. That's not interesting anybody. So
have you come across the Z effect? The Zanui effect. So like a Z. So like on a menu, the 2 corners of the Z, where the Z 2 corners are where you need to put your most profitable dishes, because that's where the eye automatically goes. I think it's called the Zanui effect if you look it up. And actually that's important in all advertising, isn't it? Is where does the eye go first? Where do we need to put our most important message?
Yeah. And that's the thing to understand in terms of marketing principles. No matter if you're sending direct mail, it's the envelope. The envelope's the first thing they see. If you're watching a video, it's the first 3 seconds. If you're doing a podcast, it's the hook and that segue in. It's always the most important thing. If you're reading a newspaper article, it's the headline or the image. On a website, it's the headline right at the top, front and center. Same on a landing page, obviously. So it's kind of like, right, where do the eyes go first, and figuring that out. And you're right, on a menu, it would be a Z. On an F, on a website, it's an F. A guy called Colin Wheeldon wrote a great book on this, and it's called something on the lines of, are you communicating or just painting pretty pictures? And his whole thing is readability and comprehension. So if you've ever done that where you're reading a book and you've gone through the page and then you've gone, I haven't just took any of that page in, I don't understand what it said and I didn't comprehend any of it, that's comprehension. And Colin's whole study, he spent years on this. David Ogilvy, one of the greatest marketers that ever lived, called Colin Wheeldon a genius, because nobody else had gone to this level of depth and detail. And he said the format, the font, whether you put copy center or aligned left or aligned right, the spacing, like, it all matters in terms of comprehension. And so many people get it wrong, and especially website developers and graphic designers, because they want the thing to look pretty rather than it built for high comprehension and persuasiveness and conversion, basically. So yeah, there's a lot of conflicting messages out there for sure. But that was what I learned, what not to do when it comes to marketing from estate agency. In sales, slightly better, but I spent the next 4.5 years in a estate agency. I went from doing the viewings to becoming a director at one of the biggest estate agencies in the UK, earning 6 figures, and basically allowing me to build up some capital to then go and start my own business.
So that's interesting, because you've read lots of books, the same as me, and presumably Peter Drucker's among the top guys, isn't it?
Sure, yeah.
Peter Drucker said the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits him and sells itself.
Yeah.
So the important words there are fits him and sells itself, isn't it? And I think almost, for most of us in business, we almost come over as desperate, that we need new customers, that we need new income, and we're trying to force our own preconceptions on our customers. So your book is great because your book talks about 10, 12, 14 ways that we can market.
Yeah.
And I believe you're actually saying that we need to focus on one, two, or three marketing channels and basically batten them down and do them so blooming well that we don't really necessarily need to do the rest. So I wanted to thank you, James. So after reading your book, and I don't know whether this will show in the stats that you've used, is I sent out 20 thank you letters, thank you cards, and I had bespoke thank you cards made, and I used your script. James, we love working with you. Is there anyone else that you think we should be in contact with? I've attached 5 of my business cards for you to pass out.
Oh, really cool.
And that was 3 weeks ago. And I've got a little bit of a competition because we have another business as well. We have a payroll bureau as well. And also had a business with a printer because I had bespoke thank you cards done. And I write with a fountain pen and I hand write the envelopes. And do you remember back at school when we used to write with fountain pens, to have ink all over the place? I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks, I've got 2 responses of my target market.
Really cool.
And I've got a competition with my printer and my other business. At the end of July, we're going to compare results about a little bit of a league, a little bit of rivalry, a little bit of peer pressure competition to see who can get the best results. And my son, bless him, my son has his own business, a payroll bureau, and he didn't want to handwrite the message. He wanted to type the message. And I said, well, I don't think that's right. And I said, the reason why I don't think it's right, I don't think it's a personal, and he's of the similar age to you. So it's going to be interesting to see what responses he gets from his business compared to what I get from my business.
Yeah, it will, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of variables there. So whoever wins, that wouldn't be solely down to the handwriting because there's a lot of variables, different businesses, who the letters go into. The list is important, isn't it? So who opens that card is really important. But the main thing is, and that's a great example of, when you reverse engineer your marketing and you do it properly, what a difference it can make. I'm guessing you've probably spent tens of pounds there and probably got thousands back. If you get 2 customers for each business, the lifetime value of those customers, I'm guessing, is going to be in the thousands. From spending,
and it'll be in the tens of thousands because typically for us, our lifetime value for a business is probably 15, 20 years.
Oh, nice. So there you go. Yeah, so tens of thousands back from tens of pounds spent. That's pretty cool.
And the most important, the biggest cost of actually doing that mail out was to actually bring a postage stamp.
Yeah. There you go.
And what I'm going to do when I've done my first 20, I'm going to do my next 20, and I'm going to do my next 20.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing that your book taught me was I haven't really been marketing my book as effectively as I can. I've been offering people free copies. And your words from your book, which I've actually used, I call it R&D, which stands for rip off and duplicate, if you don't mind, is I've said to people, let me buy you a copy of my book.
Yeah, really nice.
And isn't it just interesting that just those turn of those words, the change of those words actually changes the messaging?
It does. Yeah, massively. The difference between that, so I was taught that by one of the greatest marketers that have ever lived, a guy called Jay Abraham, mentored and coached me throughout 2023. I spent hundreds of thousands with this guy. And he's a wonderful guy. He's late in his 70s now. He's literally just recovering from back surgery. He just sent me an email not long ago because he's just read the book. And I actually rip off and distributed that from Jay, and Jay taught me that. He said, instead of using free, like free this, free that, there are some things where you've kind of got to because it wouldn't make sense. Especially if it's mass market, if you're trying to put something out there to 10,000 people, it's hard to say I bought you a copy. But given the right context, instead of using free, hey, here's a free copy of my book. Hey, I bought you a copy of the book. The difference, and this is the whole point. This is why I went into copywriting so deeply in the book, despite AI exploding and taking off. Is there are words that you can use that pack a punch. There are words that you can use that just pierce people's soul and impact them so strongly. And that's a great example. Free book, let me buy one for you. The difference at those words is the same result, it's the same output. But the difference those words make is huge.
So early on in your book, you talk about fixing spark plugs.
Yeah.
And I just wondered whether you'd like to share what you actually meant by that. I mean, I know what you meant by that because I've read the book, but I just wondered what you meant by
Yes.
that.
So this is why I wrote the book, actually. So when I first started my own business, my first business, I have 5 now, and they're a mix of the process that I'm going to talk through. But my first business was in a dormant market. So here's what a dormant market means. Nobody's searching for it. It means that you've got to go and interrupt people or you starve. Now, I just come from a estate agency, which is an active market. When people need to sell a house, they search the local agents, maybe they'll get an online one and they'll get 3 quotes. That's usually the way that it goes. It's an active market. People are searching for you, so you want to appear highly in searches, whether it be Google or AI. And also, when you are going through the sales process, you're typically competing against other people rather than trying to educate them on why they need this product or service. They know why they need it, but you need to educate them on why they need yours, not the neighbours. In a dormant market, you don't have that. Normally, you're typically educating people on why they need this product or service rather than why you need to buy from me instead of someone else. Typically, people in a dormant market don't get 3 quotes. They'll go with the person that educated them and interrupted them in the first place. So I started in a dormant market. I'd been used to an active market, which meant I sat around and just waited for the phone to ring for a few months, and it didn't ring. So I'm at a point where I've built up all this cash from having this posh job, and it's starting to dwindle, and I'm starting to have the panic and the sleepless nights and the stuff that I'm sure tons of your clients have been through. I know thousands of the business owners we've spoke to have been through the same thing, and I'm starting to biting my nails. And then I realised I really need, so again, go back to Jim Rohn. He says success leaves clues. If you want to be successful, follow other people's successful strategies. And again, I've been really fortunate that I'd boxed for so long and always had a coach and always been mentored or always had someone that I was going to learn from. I was travelling the gyms all over. We were dead lucky in the Northwest as well, because you've got great boxing gyms in Manchester and Liverpool, and even just over the road in Sheffield, there was a lot of great fighters at that time. So I was travelling all over the place, learning from the best, and that followed through in business. So I've been all over the world learning from anyone from Deepak Chopra on spiritualism through to Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, who are considered the 2 best alive. They're the Messi and Ronaldo, really, of small business marketing. Pretty much the best in the world. And I've been on both of these guys' programs. And that was the name of the game for me, is go learn and go study. But the reason I wrote the book is because I was going all around the world and I was learning from all these guys, and they were all giving me these snippets of advice, and I was confused as hell. I was doing the things. Gary Vaynerchuk says post 3 times a day, so I was posting 3 times a day, but nobody was paying any attention. Then Dan Kennedy says, he's got 10 commandments, and he says commandment number 1 is you should always have an offer. And Gary Vaynerchuk saying jab, 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 right hook. He's saying don't offer every time. So I'm getting real confused now. I've got Gary Vaynerchuk over here who's a titan, and we've got Dan Kennedy over here who's the best in the world. And they're conflicting advice. I was like, what the heck? I don't know about you, Paul, but I'm the kind of guy who needs do this first, do this second, do this third, do this fourth. I needed a method. So I built it. And that was the next 5 years, hundreds of thousands, way over £500,000 spent, learning from some of these guys, testing and tweaking and trialing in an industry that's really hard to generate leads. But I got there. It worked. My business exploded. We won 5 global awards in the company. I went and bought another bunch of businesses, including a law firm and a software company, just in the process of completing on a restaurant now. And it worked. The beautiful thing is this system, it worked in every single one, from as different as a coaching company through to a law firm, through to a software business. It just worked. And that's the analogy of the spark plug is, well, it's actually a true story that I took my car, one of my old cars before I had the EVs, I took one of my cars to the garage, and there's a mechanic, I'm guessing he owned the business, and his apprentice, and he's giving his apprentice a hard time like most apprentices get. And the apprentice is kind of like being a bit braggadocious, and he's like, hey, I learned how to change the spark plug yesterday. And then the mechanic said this, and it literally put it all in order for me. It made it all make sense. He said, just because you know how to change a spark plug doesn't mean you can fix a car. If someone comes in here and the spark plug's damaged or broke or whatever, he's like, fine, you can change it and the car will be fine. But if it's anything else other than the spark plug, you're screwed. Post 3 times a day. Have an offer every time. That's what I was hearing. It was like, oh, the post 3 times a day. If you don't understand everything else, if you don't understand the whole system, what good is it knowing that you should post 3 times a day? Post about what? What should I say? How does it make my customer want to buy? How does it persuade them? How do I even get it in front of my customer? Oh, well, if you don't understand any of that stuff, what good is it posting 3 times a day? You're just going to do it wrong. So that was the moment everything clicked, and it was like, I don't need snippets of advice. I need a system. Do this first, do this second, do this third. And that's
So it's a great example of Michael Gerber, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the apprentice was a technician, he knew how to fix a spark plug.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no one had actually taught him how to be a business person, how to have a system, how to have a process. And Michael Gerber holds up McDonald's as a great example of a turnkey business, a systemized business. And actually, that's what we need all our businesses to be. What I loved about your book was that when you spent a lot of detail on copywriting, because it seems to me, how do you craft your message? How do you cut through the chatter, cut through all the noise? And an example I always give, Bodmin, the town that I'm based in, has probably got a population of 15,000. And I'm young enough to remember Yellow Pages, and you may be young enough to remember Yellow Pages as well. And about 15, 20 years ago, I went through Yellow Pages, and Bodmin had 15 hairdressers. So I wrote to all the hairdressers, and my strapline was, "Who's cutting it for you?"
Brilliant.
And I had 3 responses from 1 letter. And one of those customers was worth £5,000 a year to me from 1 letter. And what I loved about your copywriting bit part of the book was you talked about all the different ways to actually do things. And I think you gave people a great framework, a great blueprint. I guess the thing is that we need to understand ourselves is which is the right framework for us to copyright in our sector, isn't it? And I guess it's what comes naturally to you. It's what works for you, isn't it?
No, it's what works for the customer. So this is the whole principle really behind the whole book is start with the end in mind, reverse engineer. Hence why it's called the reverse marketing method. Not the book, the process within the book. And most businesses jump straight in and they go, you asked me a question earlier about the platform. They go, right, what platform should I be on? And it's like, I don't know. That's the last place to go. That's not the first place to go. And most businesses make the mistake of going there first. They go to a networking event. John from BNI tells them they should be on LinkedIn. Everyone should be on LinkedIn. Or everyone should rank on Google. And it's not true. It is just simply not true. I haven't found a platform yet that everybody should be on. So the process is this. Number 1, what problem do you solve better than anyone else? Like, what is the problem? When someone comes to you as a customer and they go, Paul, I'm really struggling with this. You go, brilliant. I'm so glad you've just said that because I tell you what, this is my strongest area. So an example of that, in my business coaching company, within my business, we've got 5 coaches. If someone comes to me and they go, so we deal with everything, right? We help people with management and leadership. We help people with acquisition. We help people with marketing, building sales processes, finance, like you name it. If it's a part of a job that a business owner should be doing, that's what we're helping with. But we've got specialists in each area. If someone comes to me and they go, James, I'm really struggling with my marketing or sales, I go, brilliant, I've got this method. Whereas if they come to me and go, management and leadership, I've got an issue with that, I go, great. The other James in our business, they call him Handsome James, Paul, if you can believe it.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I don't know what they call me, but they call him Handsome James. And he's a former Team GB Olympic coach. He's management and leadership expert. He's one of the best in the world. So if they come and they go, management and leadership, I go, great, James is the man. So it's kind of like, what problem gets you excited? Do you solve where you can go, we have got a proven method, I know exactly what to do for you, do this, do this, do this. You wouldn't say that yet, but you know what to do. That's the place to start. And then go, who's the target market that is literally awake at night, they can't sleep, they are stressed out, they're in cold sweats because of that problem. Automatically, you have just made your marketing 80% easier just by sitting down to stop and do that. Now, the more niched that target market is, the better. But that causes most people to go into this fear and anxiety state because they don't want a niche. They think the general consensus is if I target everyone in the hopes to get anyone, maybe I'll get someone. But they don't, they end up with no one. And that's the key is the clearer you are on the target market and the problem that they've got, the better job you do of everything else. So you just referenced the Peter Drucker quote about understanding your customer. Dan Kennedy, who I referenced earlier, says you want to be able to enter the conversation that's going on in their head. Then, when you, and again, this is going back to your Drucker quote, when you can explain the problem that the prospect has got really clearly, they automatically assume, without you even mentioning your product, service, capabilities or skill set or experience, they automatically assume because you've explained it so well that you know how to solve it. And that's the key. So for us, small business owners that are struggling with the marketing, typically, this is what they're going through. They're posting on social media and it's not working. Some of them have even tried the post every day. They go through peaks and troughs. Most of their customers come from word of mouth, and it means that it's unreliable and there is moments and phases and seasons through the year where they're stressing where the next customer's coming from. They've probably tried an agency or two. It hasn't worked out and they've lost money. They might have even tried hiring a staff member who, same thing, didn't work out because they tried hiring someone super junior. They didn't have the budget for the £500,000 a year chief marketing officer and nor the team for that marketing officer to manage. And they're probably just feeling a bit lost. They're probably just thinking, this marketing stuff's too complex. Now, if there's a small business owner listening to that, I've not even told them what I can do yet, but they're automatically going to assume that I know how to fix that problem because I can explain the conversation that's going on in their head. And that's going back to Drucker, understanding the customer and understanding the pains and rigmaroles that they're going through. So first, get clear on the problem you solve. Get clear on the target market. The riches are in the niches. Like, the smaller, the better, although it's got to be the smallest viable market. You don't want to go so small that you can't pay the bills. And then do the market research to get clear on the conversation that's going on in their head. What do they want? What challenges are they facing? And what objections would they have to choosing your product or service? But you have to do the market research because if you guess wrong. Because you go from your side of the fence, not theirs. We all have cognitive bias, right?
So for me, one of the best books I read was Marcus Sherry, and They Ask You Answer. Presumably you've read that, have you?
He's a good friend of mine, Marcus, yeah.
And what I loved about Marcus is that he taught us a number of things. So actually on our website, on my firm's website, it says if we're not the right fit for you, here's a link to other accountants who may be the right fit for you. And I've had people look at my website and go, well, why would you recommend other accountants? Well, typically for us, we get 10 to 12 leads a month, of which 1 or 2 might be our target market. So I need to focus back on our marketing. It needs to be niching. It needs to be an inch wide, mile deep.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
We need to go narrow and deep. And the beauty about having other accountants with hyperlinks to their website is, A, it helps my SEO, it helps my website. And also, most people will take comparisons of services. They'll speak to other professionals anyway. So actually, why not point them in the direction of the people that I want them to compare us to? And can I suggest it might not be apples and apples, it might be apples and oranges, you know what I mean? I've actually got the choice of actually working out who the comparisons against. And I think a lot of people are afraid to turn work down. And I think they're also afraid to actually say might not be right for everybody, because I think if you aim for everybody, you aim for basically serving no one, and the only one who actually is put out about it is you, because you're busy dealing with people who aren't your target market with problems that you don't really want to deal with. Your machine's clogged up. Exactly.
And most businesses are not built on one target market. They might have 10 target markets, but those different markets, they need different campaigns. You can't do the same thing. So let me give you an example. The example that I use in the book, actually, you're probably quite familiar with, is if I've got an 18-year-old boy and an 88-year-old woman, I can't send them the same message, the same offer, and use the same vehicle, the same platform to get that message and offer to them. And by the way, when I do the market research, they've got different pains, they've got different desires, and they've got different objections. What does the 18-year-old want most? To pull in the bar on a Friday night? Like, he's just bothered about girls and not much else, maybe.
And maybe beer.
And maybe a bit of booze, yeah. The 88-year-old, what's she bothered about? She wants to see her grandkids more. Like, she probably feels a bit lonely. Like, how could you write the same message to those two? So it's not a case of you need to niche your whole business so you only serve one demographic or psychographic or even behavioral target market. But it's each campaign, each marketing campaign should definitely hit and reach one target market. Because otherwise, like you've said, if you shoot an arrow straight down the middle, but the 18-year-old's on the left and the 88-year-old's on the right, you end up hitting nobody. You end up speaking to nobody. You end up with landlords wanted, which nobody cares about. Like literally just nobody's going to stop and read that.
So, in a word, what makes good copy comes back to some of the frameworks that you talked about in the book, doesn't it?
Exactly. But first, that market research. So the example that I give in the book of that, in the market research, we want to understand the conversation that's going on in their head. Then it's really hard to write bad copy. If you write about that, if you can understand the conversation going on in their head, it's hard to write bad copy, like, especially if you use one of the AI models. But if you just put into the AI models, what's good copywriting look like, write me some copy, it's usually not that good copy because you didn't give it the rest of the context. And the AI models are a people pleaser, so they won't challenge you too hard on it. So if you understand the conversation going on in their head, then it's hard to write good copy. So the example I use in the book is of Kyle, the bathroom fitter. And I had this conversation with him and he was like, James, I've been doing this a long time. I know my customers inside out. I said, okay, what do they want most? And he said, reputable bathroom fitter. I was like, right. I was like, what challenges have they got? And he said, finding a reputable bathroom fitter. There's some cowboys out there. And I said, and what object? And I was like, hold on, Kyle, you're seeing things from your perspective here. So then we did some market research and he had one conversation with this woman and it completely changed his point of view. And he said, he rang me and he was like, I've just got off the phone with this woman and I asked her the questions and he was like, James, I was wrong. I said, go on, tell me about it. And he said, well, she's just moved house about 9 months ago and the last room in the house that she's decorated are the bathrooms. There's 2 bathrooms. She said they're expensive. The kitchen's expensive, yes, but people see it straight away. Everybody's in the kitchen. She was like, the bathrooms, we've left them till last, they're expensive. You know, we don't want to be without bathroom, so we've left it till last. And she was like, what pain is she in? And he said, well now, whenever someone comes round to see their nice new house and they ask to use the bathroom, she was like, she's ashamed of it. It's disgusting. There's mold in there. Like, it's an old bathroom. It's like 70s or 80s. She's not proud of it. They've got this beautiful house. They've done all this work to it, but she hates it. She says it fills her with anxiety when someone comes around and says, can I use the bathroom? Because she's like, oh, it's disgusting. Will they judge me? It's shame. It's like, what does she want? Well, she wants to be able to host again. She wants to be able to invite people around. They've stopped having parties. They've stopped having people around because she's terrified of people using the bathroom. And she wants to have a bath with a candle and relax in peace. That is so different from a reputable bathroom fitter. And that's the point. No matter how experienced we are, we've been experiencing our business from our point of view for all these years and decades, not from theirs. And the more you understand the customer and can enter the conversation going on in their head. So think about that now. If I was to write some copy now for that woman, what would I write? It's a piece of cake. Have you stopped inviting people around to your house because you're ashamed of when people ask to use the bathroom? That headline stops her in her tracks. Why? Because it's just entered the conversation going on in her head.
Because it's up here in her head. That's her conversation.
It's already there. Compare that to landlords wanted. It's like it's just night and day difference, yeah. So once you understand the customer, so once you've done the market, so what problem do you solve better than anyone else? Who's the target market that is starving for that solution? Find the starving crowd and then do the market research so you understand the conversation going on in their head. Then build the offers that will help them with that problem that they've got. And then we write the copy to put the offers in front of them. And then we choose the vehicles. Once we've done all that, then we can choose the vehicles and the platforms to get that message to them. And again, if it's an 88-year-old woman, I'm probably using direct mail and letters. I might use like the Red Rose magazines that come through with all the ads, or a coupon booklet. If it's the 18-year-old boy, I'm using TikTok.
Yeah.
So the vehicle's got to come last once you understand everything that precedes it.
So I'm a great fan of snail mail.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm a great fan of snail mail is how many emails do you get a day, James? I bet it's in the hundreds, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah, 400 or 500, I reckon.
How many do you read
Three.
properly?
Yeah, three. And my PA deals with most of them. I reckon about three.
Right. So why I believe in snail mail, because I think it cuts through the chatter, it cuts through the filter. Because how many letters a day do you get? Maybe two, three?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not even that. Maybe two a week. And they're always in brown envelopes, right? With or white envelopes, brown or white envelopes.
Yeah. When we send my book out, I've got a fluorescent green envelope.
There we go.
Okay, and I always put my logo on it. It's always handwritten. And an interesting fact about us is that a few years ago, we used to import ducks. There's a company in Southend called justducks.co.uk, and we used to import little ducks like that, and round their neck, I put a luggage label which says, "If lost, please return to Cornish Can Solutions." And all I would do was send out the duck in an envelope, nothing else. And when I rang up, I would say, "Can I speak to the person who's got the duck, please?" And I'd get through the gatekeeper.
Really cool.
And I think the problem that we've all got is that, and my son tells me off for this, the younger generation has grown up with technology.
Yeah.
Technology is wonderful, but we're almost overloaded with technology now. You talk about TikTok, we could have, Twitter or X, we could have Facebook, we could have Instagram, we could have whatever. And actually, we've got to work out a way that actually cuts through the chatter. The other thing that we do is that we have a little magnifying glass that we put on a postcard that says, "Who's paying close attention to your numbers?" And it's just to be different. It's just to stand out because I was always taught people don't know whether you're better than someone else, but people remember if you're different.
Yeah. Often the marketing and sales is the differentiator. Like most people don't know what makes a good accountant versus a bad one. Maybe the communication and customer service is probably the real business, but if you can stand out in the marketing and sales process, for sure. And I think as long as the target market is the right target market, then yeah, direct mail can work really well.
So if you ask me what I did, I'm a businessman, just like you. Just so happens my business is focused on increasing profits, improving cash flow, and paying the legally minimum amount of tax possible. I don't use the word accountant because you may remember the Monty Python sketch with John Cleese when they had the accountants, the chap with the bowler hat with the umbrella, and it goes down to Ronnie Corbett, who's the lowest. Most people have got a preconception about what an accountant is. And I want to stand out from the crowd. I want to differentiate myself. So, James, we spent quite some time today. So, what I want to do finally, was there anything else you'd like to add to our audience today? Anything else you would like to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest thing is to understand that nothing happens in business until someone sells something. So therefore, by proxy, I would argue marketing is the most important function in business because until someone sold something, nothing else happens. And I think the moral of the story is, and I learned this the hard way, you've got to give it the respect it deserves. You've got
And
to
by
give
the
the
respect, you
marketing
mean the
function
time and the money, don't you? I think.
the time, the money, the effort, the energy. Treat it like it's the most important function in business. And that includes building skill set, whether that's of the individual owner, which I think for an SME, it's usually useful for the business owner to have enough knowledge and skill to understand whether someone that's working for them is doing a good or a bad job. And if they're that small that you can't hire someone to do this, you've got to build that skill yourself. There's almost no other option.
Excellent. So, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, James, how would they do that? What's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is probably on Instagram, at James Burke Coach. I would say if they wanted to grab a copy of the book, the best place is on Amazon. The book's called Marketing That Works. A big bright orange cover. And I think they're the best two ways. Yeah, LinkedIn as
Okay.
well. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
And this is a copy of the book.
There you go.
Um, and what I'm hoping to do, James, is that I can't make, you just had your event in Manchester, haven't you, I think? Or
We've
just
just had
about?
an event in Manchester. Yeah, we've got a couple more over the UK and one overseas in October. But the next one in Manchester will be back end of the year.
So what I'm hoping, James, is that I would have the privilege, the opportunity to meet up with you personally at one of your in-person events. And for me, one of the greatest things that I've learned from your story is the Dan Sullivan quote, A and B always measure backward. Look at what your journey's been to where you are today. rather than beating yourself up because you haven't actually hit it, and actually looking at your journey, listening to your story, watching your interaction with people on Business as Unusual on the Amazon Prime series, I think was quite stimulating, inspirational, and amazing. And I think, James, thank you for your time today. It's been a privilege to be able to talk to you, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Paul.
No problem at all. Thank you then. Bye bye.